Superintendent of Whittier Voc-Tech. Ms. Lynch, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm going to show a quick video and then I'm going to go through a PowerPoint and hopefully answer any and all questions that you have.
Sure.
We're doing this old school.
Vocational programs are important to us in the construction industry because, one, we're having a hard time staffing our projects right now, and we have a lot of people getting ready to retire. So within the next 5 years, we're probably going to see a dip of 30% of our workforce across all crafts, not just laborers.
The benefits to the community is a workforce. You know, we have about 150 juniors and seniors out working right now.
It truly is training the future workers of America, and that's what we need. You can't find places nowadays, unfortunately, that have full complement of skilled workers.
The great thing about vocational technical education is that students can leave Whittier with not only their high school diploma, but their trade certificate, and they can go out and get good paying jobs. We really encourage our students in their junior and senior year to go out and co-op.
It is a wonderful opportunity for me because I get to learn so much and really get the real experience of what it's going to be like even after I graduate from high school.
A kid that graduates from Whittier Tech can go right into the workforce. Also, a student that graduates from Whittier Tech can go right into higher education.
If you call an electrician, if you call a plumber, if you go get your hair styled, chances are very high it was a Whittier Tech grad. Our community is full of Whittier Tech pride and Whittier Tech professionals.
I've been in this building for over 20 years. It might look like it's a beautiful building because it is, but when you get into the bones of the building and the insides of the building, it's rough.
It keeps me up at night. Recently, we lost electricity, we had flooding.
I think it was about 2 weeks ago, we had a flood down in the basement. I was absolutely panicking. You know, I had to let the superintendent and the principal know, hey, we got a problem downstairs, and if I can't get this fixed, we might need to evacuate the school. Those things happen around here. And when those things happen, you can't have school. You can't give the kids the education they deserve.
It definitely is showing its age. There's times where heat and air conditioning just don't work, which make it environments unfit for learning.
I had a pipe burst over my locker, but it's okay.
The students and the instructors and the administration are doing the best they can with the building we have currently, but vocational education is only going to continue to grow, and we need to grow with that.
You cannot have Wi-Fi in this building. It just doesn't really work. So students aren't really being held to that 21st century technology standard.
When you go, through the different systems and the codes and the fire codes and the emergency stuff, nothing is up to par.
We've been told by the city inspector that we are not allowed to do any more projects or renovations in this building until we put in a sprinkler system. We are not compliant with ADA compliance at all, and that hurts our kids and that hurts our staff. If the community does not believe that we need a new building, my job is to make sure they understand that we have to do something. Not doing anything is not an option. So really, it's a new building. We're going to have to bring this current building up to code. And from what we've learned from the feasibility study is that will be more expensive to the taxpayers in our district, with absolutely no reimbursement from the state.
So we've seen little renovations that we've done over the years, and it's to the limit. We can't renovate anymore. It's impossible to do that, and it just keeps falling apart.
It needs to be redone, rebuilt. We need a new school.
The numbers are clear. It will cost the taxpayers of our district much more money to go with a renovation of this building and bring everything up to code versus a new building.
I feel like it's such an investment in our future because a lot of these students and graduates, when they come out, they're going to join the workforce in our community. They're either going to start their own businesses, work for existing businesses.
The biggest thing I really want people to understand is that our kids deserve this. Our kids deserve to go to school in a quality building, that they're not concerned that there's no heat in their classroom or their classroom's too cold or that there's water. And these are some of the issues that our kids are dealing with right now. And it's not fair to them. We need to do better.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you again so much for having me here tonight. It's great seeing you again. I'm here to share a little bit about our project and what's been happening and where we are and where we need to go. And certainly if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So tonight with me, I have Kara Cosmas, our business manager. I have Chris Laganis, the principal. I have Robert Hardy, our facilities director. Tia Gerber, Whittier Tech Community Partnerships. Jim Rogers, principal of left field. Alicia Caratano from JCJ. Doug Roberts from JCJ. And John Lamar from Consigli. So Whittier Tech, we just celebrated our 50th anniversary. A few weeks ago, we had our first Hall of Fame dinner, Athletic Hall of Fame dinner. Can you believe it took us 50 years to do that? But we had a wonderful night, and we also celebrated Whittier Tech being 50 years. So 50 years of providing our workforce for our community. So we right now have 1,280 day students. We have 400 night students. If you were to go to Whittier Tech, especially on a Monday or Wednesday night, we have a full program of electrical journeymen and plumbing journeymen, as well as students taking courses of interest in carpentry or welding and that kind of thing. We also have our summer CTI programs that are paid for by the state. We're using Mass Hire. I think we're running 8 programs this summer, and that's a change. We used to do what we call Discovery Program for middle school students, but because of the real need of the workforce, we've really changed that to have our programs open in the summer and do that work over the summer. So back in 1973, the programs here that are light are gone now. The biggest looking at this is boat building. We had boat building in 1973, and we have now changed that to marine technology. Our marine technology program is our newest program at Whittier. We have been lucky enough to receive, I think, almost all of the equipment through grants and then working with the Maritimes Association. The program has been hugely successful day and night, and summers, I should say. So through the process in 1973, Whittier Tech opened with 28 programs. In 2014, the former superintendent did a facility study just to look at our building, knowing that things were starting to age, and we could get a capture of what needed to happen as we started writing our statements of interest. So we wrote 5 statements of interest, and we were finally accepted in 2019. Everyone waits for that call, and you get so excited that you're finally invited into MSBA's feasibility and eligibility stage, and then you realize how much work it is to kind of keep moving forward. But we are happy to have the MSBA as partners through this whole project with us. When the building was built in 1973, it was before IDA, Students with Disabilities Act. And we wanted to, that's one thing that is really something that is of a concern in our building, that we are not handicap accessible at all. If you come into our auditorium, you have to walk upstairs to really get into the auditorium. You have to go around a curtain. But it's something that we definitely work with our students on that to attend Whittier Tech. We also don't have an elevator that goes to up all 4 floors. There's one elevator in the main lobby that does 3, but to go to that final floor downstairs, you have to walk around to the other side of the building to get to the basement. So existing conditions, I'm going to ask Bob Hardy to come up and talk a little bit about our existing conditions that he deals with every day.
Good evening, and thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Robert Hardy. I'm the facilities manager at Whittier Tech, and I'll take you through some of these slides and explain what they are. So what you see here on the left-hand side, that is our freight elevator and our passenger elevator. That is on the ground floor of our school. You can notice on the the right-hand side, that elevator, it's not ADA compliant, the door's too small, and if someone in a wheelchair had to use the freight elevator, the buttons are too high for them to push. What you see on the right-hand side is the entrance into our auditorium. There's no ramp there. You can see the aluminum ramp that is on the platform, so if someone does show up with a wheelchair,
We do have to pull that out and place that there and help them up into the auditorium. If we are not around to assist anyone, they can get into the auditorium, but they have to go behind the curtain, on top of the stage, down a ramp that's not ADA compliant, and then up another ramp that is not ADA compliant. So on the left-hand side, what you see is an overflow classroom from cubbies we had to put out there from our medical assisting. And in the background on both of those pictures, you can see the glass. The glass is cracked, broken, and that glass, we do have to replace that glass. I'm told we cannot have that glass in our school if we have a renovation there. The left-hand photo is a chiller pump. That particular pump right there, that pump is broken. There are 8 pumps for our chiller system, but you know what they say, when one pump goes, they're all gonna start to fail, and that one has failed, and that one does need to get replaced. The right-hand side photo, that is some old control, original to the school, pneumatic controls and lighting controls for our school. The left-hand photo is the wastewater that is in our basement. So any dirty water or wastewater goes to that holding tank, gets ground down, and then pumped out to our treatment plant. That tank does need to get replaced. It is original to the school. The right-hand photo, what you see, that is a hand sink. That is also original to the school, and those are in the ground floor of our school. The left-hand photo, that is our generator house, but what you don't see is behind the door is the generator. The generator is too small for the school. It does not function a lot of things in there during power outages. It will do some lights, some hallway lights, a couple bathrooms, 2 freezers and 2 refrigerators and culinary, but that's about all it does. So that needs an upgrade, and we need a bigger generator to get more emergency power into the school during a power outage. The right-hand side, those are original in the corridor electrical panels with a sub-panel on it, and I cannot put any more sub-panels on any of these old electrical panels in the school. There's no more room for that. So on the left-hand side, that is our west terrace. That is right outside our cafeteria. As you can see, we did get a lot of rain this year, but you can see in that catch basin, the water is actually blowing up from that catch basin because the catch basin couldn't handle the water. So what happens in a heavy rain is that west terrace will flood out. The rain will back up against our gymnasium. It won't go into the gym, but what happens is it goes down to the wall. Our gym's on the 2nd floor. It wicks down the brick and goes down to our basement, and it leaks into our equipment room, and we can't keep equipment on the equipment room on the outside wall. So on the right-hand side, what you see, that is welding and HVAC. That floods during a heavy rainstorm, and the reason it does flood is you can look in that photo, in the background of that photo, you see 2 doors. Those doors are approximately 4 to 5 feet below grade level. There is a drain out there, but it can't keep up with the heavy rain we get. So the left-hand side, I always say this, this is the heartbeat of the school. This is the pneumatic compressor. It is original to the school. So what this compressor does, it has hundreds of rubber hoses that run through the school that runs our univent heaters, our thermostats, and our clocks. So when these hoses break, and they do break often in the school, we have to track these hoses down, replace the hose, and once you know what is broken, your clocks stop, your thermostats don't work, and your heat goes full bore. And if you can't fix it, what happens is I'll go to the classroom and I'll have to manually shut these univent heaters off by the breaker inside the univent, and it happens quite a bit, and there's probably about 10 classrooms right now that I have to do that every day during the winter season, is show up early in the morning, turn the breakers on, run the heat in those classrooms full bore for an hour or 2, go back, shut them down, let everything cool down, then go back there around noontime, turn them back on to take the show back out of the room. And that it does happen quite a bit there. On the right-hand side, you see the French doors. Those French doors are rotted out. They all need to get replaced, and you can see the bricks above that are all deteriorating. The left-hand photo, that is the basement in one of our electrical rooms. That is groundwater in a pump station down there. That takes in quite a bit of water. That pumps out a lot every day. But the scary thing about that is if that pump fails, that is in an electrical room, and we know water and electrical don't go well together. On the right-hand photo, that is one of the tanks down in our wastewater treatment plant, sorry. You can see it's all rotted out, and that is original to the school, and all those tanks do need to get replaced. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. So how was this decision made and why? So MSBA requires you to look at 3 options. It requires you to look at a code upgrade, a renovation or addition, and a new building. And through a comprehensive qualitative and quantitative analysis of the multiple options, the building committee determined that constructing a new facility would be the optimal and most cost-effective solution. But before any of this work starts, you do have to do an educational plan, and that needs to get submitted to DESE before you begin designing a building or any other kind of decisions are made. So options studied. So originally, when we looked at building options, we asked MSBA to increase our enrollment to 1,400 students. And we looked at several options at 1,400, and then we looked at same sizing, which is currently 1,280 students. Then through the preferred schematic report, as we moved forward, we really thought that 1,400, adding 120 students would actually really hurt some of our communities that their high school enrollment is really going down. And we didn't want to hurt any of our district schools. With a capital assessment along with assessment per student coming to the school. So we did land on 1,280 students, same sizing the building. So again, through the schematic report, we looked at an upgrade, an add reno of 1,280, and then a new building of 1,280. And we landed on one new building at 1,280, and we began to develop the project scope, budget, and schedule. And that is where we are now. So this is the PSR design options and how we evaluated them. So the first option was a new construction. It was option AB-31. The other option we looked at was a new construction, AB-3.2. That actually was more money. It would have cost the district a lot more because that would have been a 4th floor versus keeping it at 3 floors. So we decided to stick with the new construction. And I think it was a teacher that said, hey, that looks like a W as we kept moving forward. It was certainly not made to be a W, as I've heard. And then looking at addition and renovation, and then continuing to look at a code upgrade. So again, the enrollment is 1,280 students. The existing building is almost 357,000 square feet. We worked with MSBA, and our current new building will be 381,000 square feet. And as you know, MSBA is very stringent about class sizes. Teachers can't have their own classroom. They really make sure that you do the work to make sure that you're building a building that is suitable and not overstepping their limitations. So again, here we are. We are just finishing schematic design. We're hoping that our schematic design will be accepted by MSBA on December 13th. So this is where we are right now. A new school building would cost the district about $267 million throughout the district, throughout the 11 communities. What we analyzed and really looked at was if we did a code upgrade, it would be around $364 million to do a code upgrade. It's important to know that, you know, we definitely have to do something. We cannot kick this down the road. So why did we choose the preferred option for the school building? So MSBA provides reimbursement for a new building. It takes approximately 3 years to complete with a minimum impact on student learning. A significant code upgrade would take us over 10 years or more. It would be more expensive because costs continue to grow. And as you know, anytime you do construction, you find out things behind the walls that you weren't planning on. And it would not change the overall layout of our building. So again, we're looking at anticipated district approval. We will be looking at a district-wide election on January 23rd, 24. That's anticipated. The school committee will have that vote on December 13th. A new building would take approximately 3 years to complete, and we would hope to have it occupied by 28-29 school year. So the project budget and tax impact. So the entire project will cost $444.6 million. We have a MSBA grant for $165.1 million, and we have anticipated federal incentive and state rebates for $15.4. So the anticipated district share is $267.5 million. And that is only if we do a new building. We would not receive any grant money if we did a code upgrade, so we would lose that $165 million. So Whittier Tech's regional agreement, our capital costs are based on school-age children, grades 1 through 2 in each town. As a result of the agreement, when you really look at it, the capital costs are spread relatively evenly in all 11 cities and towns, and everyone benefits from the workforce the district provides, regardless of our student enrollment. So what would the tax impact be? For the average home value in Amesbury of $520,000, the average tax impact would be $242 a year for a new school. To see the tax impact on your home in Amesbury, and again, you're looking at your assessed value, we do have a tax calculator on our website, buildingthefutureofwhittiertech.org. So the anticipated district-wide election, I've heard a little bit about this. It is Mass General Law, Section 16N, regarding district elections. Our anticipated district election will be on January 23rd from 11 to 7. This is Mass General Law. You can have the election from as little as 4 hours to as much as 8 hours. And it can be the only question on the ballot that day. The results are based on the aggregate total throughout the Whittier Tech community, so all 11 cities and towns, and we will have polling places within each community, and voters are encouraged to contact their town and city election office to confirm polling. So if the vote fails, what is next? What are next steps? So projects that need immediate attention. My goal is to make sure that I have a building that we can educate students in. And so there are certain things that we need to take care of right away. The first would be the wastewater treatment plant. And the second would be the sprinkler suppression system. We have done our own renovations throughout the building over these years, and that's why we are now required to put in a sprinkler suppression system. We are at a full stop of doing any more renovations on our own until that sprinkler suppression system is in. And bottom line is we need to have heat, we need to have electricity, and we need to be able to flush toilets in our school. So those are priorities so that we can keep our building open. We do not have an option to move students to another place. We do not have that option to move them to a different school. They're at Whittier Tech for a vocational trade program. It would be nearly impossible to move our trades to another place if the building fails. So once these code upgrades are done, the district would meet that 30% threshold that would trigger a full ADA code and compliance upgrade that would be required by law. So these are examples of other imminent upgrades: a secondary access road, full ADA compliance, code compliant elevator, civil utilities to support building upgrades, envelope upgrades, structural modifications, various interior work, and selective demolition abatement and related to the above upgrades. Again, my priority as we move forward, if we end up not securing a new building, is to make sure that we can keep our building open. So again, we look at the slide that I showed a few slides ago. The new building would cost $267 million for the district, and then the anticipated if we did a code upgrade, would be around $364 million. So these are some of the thoughts of how we would move forward for the next 10 years as far as a budget moving forward if we ended up having to do full code upgrade. I need to plan for worst case scenario, and this would be obviously our worst case scenario. Actually, I lied, worst case scenario would be the building to fail. And then this is how we would have to break up our building. You know, because we are a VOTEC program, we would have to break the entire building up into zones. And so this is what that would look like over the 10-year period. So some of the ways we've outreach to our community, we've had many community forums. We've been visiting all of our cities and towns. We have a Wildcat Wire newsletter that has been sent to you. I think we're sending out another one tomorrow, so I hope you look forward to reading that. But we've been trying to get out to our communities to let them know what's happening. And then these are some of the social media posts that we have done over the last couple years. And then press releases. And again, we're going to do another community forum on January 13th. So please, if any of you have never been to Whittier, it's a great time to see Whittier and what we're doing. But Bob Hardy will take you behind the walls, and you can see kind of what he deals with every day moving forward. You know, this morning or yesterday morning, he had a flood in a science classroom. So every day, I said, is a new adventure for him. So Alumni Spotlight, Tia.
Hi everyone, my name is Tia Gerber and I am the Director of Community Partnerships at Whittier Tech. I just want to start off by saying that I love Amesbury, and I specifically loved coming into Amesbury tonight because I graduated from Whittier. I graduated in 2011, and some of my best friends, some of my lifelong connections came right here from Amesbury. As a student from Haverhill, I was born and raised in Haverhill. I didn't have the opportunity necessarily to meet people from other cities and towns, and Whittier granted me with that opportunity, right? I had the opportunity to meet people from Amesbury, spend Friday nights at Pizza Factory, explore the rail trail, spend some time on Back River Road. Amesbury is a truly special place. So again, thank you for having us here tonight. I'm also the product of very, very hardworking tradespeople. My grandfather, my father, all of my uncles, and my brother are plumbers, and I am married to a welder. So to say that vocational education is tried and true would be an understatement. I truly believe that vocational education is what allows our world to turn, right? Beautiful spaces like this, roads, bridges, all of the spaces that we come in contact with on a day-to-day basis are because of tradespeople. I have the immense pleasure of working at Whittier during the day with our day school students, during the evening with our adult students who are coming to Whittier for an array of different trainings, our personal enrichment courses, and I also have the pleasure of connecting with students in the summer who are looking to really change their lives. And what I love the most is our alumni connection. So our alumni are truly all over the community. Whether or not they go on to higher education, full-time employment, the armed forces, or a combination of all of them, I can tell you that they really go on to do truly amazing things. We have so many Amesbury alumni, but I just wanted to highlight a couple tonight. One specifically is Ethan Sanborn. Let's see, I'm going to pop around a little bit. Ethan Sanborn. So he graduated from Whittier in 2012. He was in the electrical program. He works at his family business, which is right here at 8 Industrial Way in Amesbury. And he said, Tia, I wouldn't be able to do what I do today if it weren't for Whittier. I was able to enter the workforce immediately. I was also able to go into higher education, and I did all of my evening education courses right at Whittier. I was able to do everything in one place here in the community. We also have Leah Kimball, who graduated in 2013 from cosmetology. She is the young, very proud owner or co-owner of Northern Roots Salon and Skincare, which is located in Georgetown. And she said, Tia, my roots are in Amesbury, right? And I took what I learned at Whittier and I started my very own business. So she is very, very proud of that. And when you walk in there, you see that so many of her staff came right from Whittier, which truly means a lot to her and the people that come into her salon. So as Maureen has mentioned, and as you've heard today, Whittier Tech truly never sleeps. We are always on. So I invite you on a Monday or Wednesday to come over to Whittier and see that the driveway is full, our parking lot is full, and all of our classes are full. We have very, very robust evening education programs. If you're looking to take a digital photography class, if you're looking to take welding, electrical theory courses, and so on, we have something for everyone. We're very proud of our career training programs. We work hard during the year to secure grant funding. So if you are currently someone who's living in Amesbury, identifies as a Massachusetts resident, 18 years or older, unemployed or underemployed, we have 100 spots for summer 2024 for free immersive career training. So 200-hour career training opportunities where students would come to us, we would train them, and then we would connect them with employment opportunities at the end of the training, which concludes on August 8th. And then last but certainly not least, the CVTE program. So this is a high school senior exploratory program where students from our 11 cities and towns have the opportunity to come to Whittier during the spring semester of their senior year to sample out different vocational programs to determine whether or not the trades are a good fit for them. And last but not least, we're always looking to provide different opportunities for students and for the community to access Whittier. We offer a Serve Safe course often, and many staff from Cider Hill Farm took advantage of that this past year. So we're always looking for additional ways to collaborate, but I'd like to thank you for listening.
Thank you, Tia. I think an important thing to also notice is when those students, those senior exploratory students come for the 8 weeks for our summer senior exploratory program, they generally will go right into our CTI program over that summer and be able to get the 200 hours of training. So it's really worked out last year. I think every student that was involved in that program did move forward with the CTI program and is now working, getting a good paying job. So here is our website. We have tried to make sure there is as much information as you possibly could want on our website. So please feel free to take a look at that. And just thank you. The anticipated district-wide vote will be January 23rd, 2024, and it will be from 11 to 7 p.m. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Great, thank you. So before I open it up to council for questions, can I just ask if you have this as a PowerPoint file, can you give a copy of it to the city clerk just so she can have it? We'll keep it with the records of the meeting just for posterity. Okay, so councilors, questions? Nobody? Councilor Stanley.
Thank you. I have a few questions. Can you hear me? Thanks. So, I appreciate you coming tonight. Appreciate the rest of the staff coming and the school building committee. I've seen this type of presentation about 3 times. I appreciate that you're going to be submitting this to us through the clerk. I did note that I have checked on the website itself, and the presentations that were previously done, specifically one that had more slides about finances, was not found, or at least I could not find it on the website, and there's a broken link when I click on important documents in the section of that Whittier Build Future website. That being said, I'd like to make a couple of comments. Generally, I am in favor of improving or replacing outdated schools that no longer serve students well, even if that means paying higher taxes. I think that most of my constituents would feel the same way. They clearly felt that way when we had our own issue with replacement of an aging elementary school. But this is limited by A, taxpayers getting good value for their investment of hard-earned tax dollars. B, regardless of value, the expense cannot result in shortchanging stakeholders of other important services. And C, ability to pay. So to that, my questions are, just so we can get it on the record and out of the way, how old is the building?
50 years old.
Excellent. So when it comes to non-reimbursable costs, you mentioned at the last community forum that I attended that there were approximately $235 million in unreimbursable costs for this project, which approximately represents 50% of the total project cost. Why?
I think 50% is a little bit more than what I would ever say. I would say that when you look at Whittier Tech, when MSBA looks at a regional vocational school, they look at us no differently than they do an elementary school. So there is not a higher reimbursement rate for us to have our own district. In other words, the superintendent's office, the business office, the SRO's office, security office, those are some of the things that are not reimbursable because we are our own district. So it's basically anything that doesn't touch students as what would be considered not reimbursable. And then the cap of the project, right? So the cap of the project, right, the estimated square footage of the project is about $954 a square foot. MSBA is only reimbursing $550 a square foot. So that leaves almost half of the actual building costs that MSBA is not reimbursing at this time. They also do not reimburse swing and moving space. So because we have so much equipment, we're going to keep most of our equipment. We do need a good cleaning, but we are going to keep most of our equipment, and that costs money to get riggers out there and move some of that equipment as well. Again, swing space as we move forward and move that equipment out. There are many things, but those are the biggest cost drivers.
Okay. To that end, if I may follow up, you had mentioned in this slide was not as detailed as the previous slide at the community forum that there are basically three major capital expenses totaling about $35 million, which are the top priorities that you have to deal with. Whether or not the building is replaced, those are the top three items. If I remember correctly, it's the water sewer treatment plant, the access road, and the sprinkler system. Right, okay. So in terms of the non-reimbursable costs associated with construction, you've mentioned that some of this swing space, the SRO offices and other related district offices, how much square footage is that when we compare it to, I believe, 381,000 square feet?
I'd have to get back to you about that. I'd have to pull out those offices and look at the square footage.
Okay, because it seems like it's quite a lot of
The biggest driver is the fact that right now it's $945 a square foot, and MSBA is only reimbursing $550 a square foot. That's the biggest driver.
Okay, good segue to my next question. Good. Recently, the MSBA, if I understand, has increased the cost cap to the $550 per square foot that you keep mentioning. I guess the question is, how much more in state funding do we get because of this increase?
We got about $35 million more because of that increase.
Okay. But how much should we expect from, as a member community or all 11 member communities, how much less will be our burden?
At the total cost, it went down $35 million because of that.
If I also understand that the MSBA's formula change also increased the cap for amounts that are non-reimbursed by about 10%. The specifics of that formula are a little bit elusive to me, but I'm told that it increased the site costs reimbursement increased by 10%. So if that's the case, does this in any way, shape, or form decrease our overall cost for other spaces, the non-building spaces?
Both of those things were about $35 million off the budget.
Okay. Since site preparation is a significant non-reimbursable cost, and athletic fields is apparently part of that formula, correct?
Right.
Okay. First question would be, you have a new varsity turf football field. Will that be remaining?
Will that be what? Oh, of course, yes.
Okay. You also have in the plan that I've seen, not sure if I saw it in this one, there will be multiple varsity and junior varsity fields for various sports, whether it be baseball, softball, basketball.
Right.
I might be missing something there. Does the current plan have any room in reducing the number of fields?
Well, they're not going to be turf fields, so we have to do something with that land, right? We can't just leave piles of dirt out there. So we are making the most of that space. But the only turf field we have is the one that we currently have. That is not added cost onto this.
Okay. Well, I wasn't asking whether they were turf or not. I do understand turf could be more expensive, but I guess the question really here is, there are many sending communities which don't have fields. They don't have the prospect of getting new fields. Here we have a school that will have multiple fields. I understand you have space, the dirt has to be moved, you may as well do something with it. I get that. But I guess the point is, from an ability to pay point of view, is there any room to reduce the number of fields? Grass, in and of itself, as part of a campus, is anywhere near the expense I would imagine as running a baseball diamond, softball field, or something else.
Right. So that's not the fields themselves are not a huge cost driver, right? And the fields will be for our community. So if Amesbury needs a field, if Merrimack needs a field, we get calls all day long about people needing fields. This is part of our community. Things that we can do, that we will do, are continuing to chase down grants for equipment. We'll continue to apply for capital skills grants. We will continue to work with MSBA. We'll continue to work with our legislature. Those are things that we will continue to do.
Good segue into my next question. Because we are a community which does not have certain fields, what accommodation will you be making for us, since this is a rather large expense which will crowd out the ability for us to do other things in our own community, and we do need varsity fields for various sports. How do we go about you allocating them to us?
Well, I don't think it's about allocating. I think we have developed a wonderful partnership with Amesbury, especially in the athletics. We work co-op in wrestling. We work co-op in hockey. We work co-op in girls lacrosse. Those are things that we can continue to do. Last year, when I heard there were some issues with some football, I made a call and said they can come over here. We're partners in this. It's not us, them. It's us. How we work together.
Okay. I will note that some of this us might end up with us, not you, having to lay people off in order to accommodate payment of this. So that's why I asked these questions about the cost. Which brings to the next point. I believe that this cost of this project is approximately $100 million more than the Northeast Metro regional project, which houses approximately 1,600 students, whereas this one is will be built for 1,280. So I guess the question is, how does one square that? Is it almost all programmatic differences that's driving that, or is there something else that's driving this $100 million more compared to this much lower enrollment?
I think it's hard to square that because there are a lot of things that go into a building. There are a lot of things such as, this one at Northeast Metro went forward, it was 2 years ago. The prices were significantly lower 2 years ago than they are now. I would say that there's been a huge escalation in construction costs between now and then. Those are things that we've had to take a look at. It could be site work, it could be, we have 24 programs, I think they have 16. There are a million different reasons about why, but I can tell you, because I have taken a look at this, the actual building, the square footage cost is not that much different, the actual building.
Okay, it would be nice to see that actual slide that showed that. I will note that during our construction, I believe Councilor Wheeler, as a member of the school building committee for the Shea Memorial, has noted that we have been on budget, and construction costs throughout this time, starting during the pandemic and following, has not actually increased. So we've been on budget. So I'm interested about how that has changed in your project. I'm not going to get into that tonight, though. I will note that there was a member at the community forum last time who made reference to a 50,000 square foot difference in the proposed facility compared to other regional schools. I think he specifically mentioned Northeast Metro, which had a attendant cost differential, and he mentioned something to the effect about the MSBA Formula 4 reimbursement. Can you elaborate on what he was trying to explain to us or bring up as a question? I don't know what you're trying
to explain, so I'd have to go back and listen to that video and try to figure out what he was talking about.
Okay. From a programmatic point of view, I know you mentioned we have approximately, I think if I saw the first slide, 26 odd types of programs back in the 1970s when it was first opened, and I think right now you're running about 30 plus?
Nope, 24.
24. How and why are programmatic decisions made?
What the need is in our community for a workforce. There was a real need for marine technology, so we took that ball, met with Mass Hire, set up an advisory board, worked through DESE's application, which is pretty complicated. There's 2 parts to make sure that we were making the right decision. And on the same line, we had fashion interior design back when I was the principal. Students weren't able to get good paying jobs from that. So that was something that we sunlighted and moved forward with closing. But that's the one thing about this building project that I have really tried to make sure is that it's flexible, because times change, trades change, and we want to be able to be flexible in our building to meet those changes.
Have you ever considered saying no?
I say no all the time, trust me.
I only ask because there are certain programs that we would like to have in our own district that we can't say we have to say no to. Is there some limited or scaled down scope that you as a regional district could adopt that might change the complexion, change the size, change the cost of this project?
I think that's something that we've been working with through the schematic design, is making sure that we're making decisions to provide a workforce for our region. If there were programs that we were offering that were not doing that, we would not be moving forward with those programs.
A couple of more questions, please. During the last community forum, you had mentioned that the school district had informed member communities that they should consider reserving for these anticipated costs for construction as far back as 2016. Can you elaborate on that? Because as a member of City Council and Finance Committee since that time, I do not recall ever having that kind of a presentation. I don't recall the last mayor mentioning it to us in any communication or any presentation. And yet it was noted in one of your presentations that that was one way we could have mitigated being prepared by reserving funds for this?
So I said in 2016, we set up a stabilization account. We went to every single city and town to set up a stabilization account because we were thinking about moving forward with a building project, that it was in the horizon. Every city and town did approve that stabilization account, and that's been what's been able to help us move forward with the feasibility study.
I will have to defer back to the administration here to give us clarification on that, because I don't see that. If you go back to the access road, which was one of the items in a previous slide, in a previous presentation, you mentioned that it was approximately $11 million to add a second egress,
right,
as mandated by the building inspector. How long is that road? Where is it going through? Because I think it was $11 million. So where is it going through? What cost per mile is that?
So it's down Old Country Road. It would be building basically a new road. I've thought a lot about that road, and if the state or the city inspector says that we need to move forward with that, we need to move forward with that. I am prioritizing the fact that I need to keep this building open. So I need to keep the building open by the sprinkler suppression system and the wastewater treatment plant. And then I've got to work on our systems. We need to have heat. We need to have electricity. Those are the priorities that we really need to move forward with.
Okay. The capital cost formula for Amesbury is based on, like all sending communities, we're based on the total school-age population.
Yes.
And our formula, as I saw in the last fiscal year 2024 budget report from Whittier, and it probably has not changed since then, is 9.74%.
Okay.
So what happens if enrollment changes? What happens if we as a sending community have a significantly lower enrollment through our district? How will that change our cost share?
You'll pay less. And what we're really hoping is that right now the interest rates are high. We're hoping that the interest rates will go down, and that will be another considerable savings to our community.
Because you're assuming a 5% rate, if I saw that on the online calculator?
Right.
Is that right? Okay. You mentioned that this is a district-wide vote. Why was the district-wide vote option chosen instead of the alternative, which is an individual community-by-community vote?
Right. So we have 11 cities and towns. It would have to be unanimous for 11 cities and towns. If anyone tied a debt exclusion into that, it would have to be that would have to be positive as well. So we would be looking at 22 unanimous decisions that would have to be made, and not one. And I don't think it's fair that any one city or town could vote down a project. I reached out to my colleagues who are also have moved forward with new buildings in the vocational world, and every single one of them has moved forward with a district-wide vote because there's so many communities that make up our vocational schools.
So I guess the question, and this sort of piggybacks off the community forum last time where someone asked, if it fails, what would you do to resubmit, and how would that change the scope or price for the follow-up vote?
I'm not sure we can resubmit. This is our one bite at this apple. $180 million. If we choose not to move forward with this, they'll give it to another city or town.
Isn't there some clarification needed on that? Because if I recall, there was some provision that if, for instance, if we in Amesbury had failed to vote in favor of the debt exclusion for the Shea, we could have presumably within 90 days, 120 days, I can't remember the exact number. Mm-hmm. So is there any clarification on that anybody can provide us?
I certainly can look into it, but another vocational school did move forward they had a no vote and they moved forward with changing their school district, but it made their building smaller. We're already same size. We already have a wait list. That doesn't seem like a feasible thing to make the building smaller.
Councilor Stanganelli, if I may. Correct me if I misrepresent this, but I believe if a no vote happens, you are required to report to the MSBA that you've got a no vote, what your plan is going forward, and they have the option to allow you to continue, but more often than not, the result is you sort of start the process over, and you're allowed to continue applying, but you do sort of start over from the beginning. That's not a absolute, but that's generally the trend. Dave?
I would just note.
Sorry, 90 days to.
Any of your comments from the audience, the mics in here won't.
90 days to respond to the MSBA for what your plan is going forward.
He's got it.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I knew it was something like that.
I do just want to be cognizant if other counselors have questions. I don't want to cut you off, Counselor Stanganelli, but I'm giving you about 10 minutes. Does anybody else have comments? And then if you want, I can circle back to Counselor Stanganelli. Counselor Hancock.
Thank you, Ms. Lynch. Appreciate the mission of the school. Construction costs are close to $1,000 a foot. The reimbursement cap from MSBA is just over $550 a foot. So about half of the cost of the school. This is a complicated technical school. We're not building an elementary school, and there are additional costs to running this school that you talked about.
Yes.
Running a district. So I'm just curious, in your conversations with MSBA, legislative representatives, how is the state failing to deliver funding for a school like Whittier Tech and putting it on school districts that can ill afford this type of unreimbursed cost?
Right. So I met with our legislators last Friday, and we had this discussion. This is a lot to put on our communities, and we are different. You can't look at us the same way as you looked at the Shea School. That we are a municipality too, so we have to have space for our buses and our trucks. We do our own plowing, all of that work. So, that is the struggle. And the struggle is also, when people see the reimbursement rate go, what's going on here? Well, it's because the state doesn't reimburse so much of it. And they're not reimbursing to the current building costs.
Thank you. I think the state is failing us. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor DeShane.
I would second my colleagues' comments about the state failing. We have a funding system. We have a funding system that pits town against town, student against student, school against school, and that's obscene. This is what we're supposed to do for our children. This is our primary requirement as adults living in community, is to provide them the education necessary to achieve a standard, a secure standard of living as adults. Whittier does an excellent job at this. I've got two alumni brothers myself. Ethan Sanborn is the son of my cousin, and his dad is as old as I am, right? I was on a job site. I'm a house painter. I was on a job site this week and last week. The finished carpenter that lead finished carpenter is 60 years old. His helper is 70, right? The cabinet guy is 60. The guy doing the staircase is 60. I'm 60. The youngest person on the job is closer to 50 than 30. Now, you think it's expensive getting the rot replaced on your house built on a cul-de-sac 25 or 30 years ago. It's a lot more expensive when a bunch of broken down 60-year-olders are doing it than when a 25 or a 30-year-older is doing like Ethan Sanborn. Another resource that, so get ready. get ready for everything to become more expensive. If we do not have this steady, everything in your home. You think it's expensive to paint your house down? Wait till the only people painting it are 60 years old. Right? That's what we're facing. I'm not kidding. Classic rock all day freaking long. Eric Clapton, every other song is Layla, right? Because everybody on the job looks like me. There's nobody, none of the sons, well, except for Ethan, right? None of the sons are coming up behind, right? My own son is in a different trade. He chose a better one, HVAC. We need that school teaching those skills. I think there's a contractor in the back of the room. I see a GC in the back of the room. He's waving at me right now. He will testify. There is no good help to be found. You cannot find consistent good help, and younger people are less expensive. Younger, well-trained people are less expensive doing the work. They do it. You should have seen those guys trying to clean the floor before they nailed the baseboards up. I was like, oh my God, because I'm going to have to clean that mess that they couldn't clean, because they literally couldn't bend down to do it. Right? But those were the only carpenters available to work on that site. That is a fact. That is the fact of life in residential construction in this area. We need this school. It's well worth the money. Now, could you please explain again what happens if we vote it down? We have to do the code upgrade, and
Yes.
the code upgrade ends up being 0%.
No reimbursement, it will cost the district more money, yes.
Yes. And we have to do it.
We're going to have to.
Yes.
Legally, once
Yes.
you hit that 30% threshold, you have to bring it all up to code.
So ultimately, this is about getting the state to step up to the plate and actually meet its responsibility to its constituents and the children that we're all raising together. This is so stupid. I can't stand this town against town bull bleep. Because that's what it is. This student's against that student. That's what this is, and it's wrong. We can't descend into that. These are our kids.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Hoag.
Thank you for the presentation. The vote on December 13th, what is that vote to approve or disapprove?
The school committee will vote how to move forward with getting approval of the building.
Meaning district-wide vote on the 24th of January?
23rd, yes.
Or 23rd?
Yeah.
Okay. The numbers that have been presented so far are based upon a 5% interest rate, is that?
Yes.
So what happens if rates don't go down to 5%? Is it fair to say that our cost could significantly increase?
So when we met with Hilltop Security, they felt like we're being conservative with the 5%. So our hope is that those rates will go down. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in this world, but we feel like we've been very conservative in our estimate.
I don't know if anybody knows, but do we know what the market rates are for a project like this today?
Does anyone? No, I can get back to you about that, though.
I mean, if they're at 7.5% today, I think assuming that we're going to hit 5% in 2 years' time is pretty freaking aggressive.
I don't think they are now. I think they're currently at 5%.
Oh, they are? Okay.
Yeah, home interest rates aren't the same.
Market rates? Okay.
Municipal bonds are always less than market rates.
Okay. At the community forum that you hosted at Whittier Tech a couple of weeks ago, there were 3 code upgrades that were required. One was on-site sewage treatment plant,
Wastewater treatment plant, sprinkler
system.
suppression system, and the access road.
On the presentation this evening, I noticed that the access road is no longer noted as being
I'm going to try to
upgrade.
kick that one down the road if we are forced to do a code upgrade, because I have to have the building be open.
Okay,
So that isn't going to help me keep the building open. I mean, if the city of Haverhill tells me I have to put in that road immediately, I'm going to have to do that. But I am categorizing how I need to move forward so that I can keep the building functioning.
Okay, so on that note, on one of the slides, you had removed the access road upgrade and swapped in electrical and systems or something like that?
Yes, I put in systems, plumbing system. Again, things that will allow me to keep the building open.
If systems and plumbing is not a requirement for a code upgrade, would you hit the 30% threshold to require ADA compliance?
I don't know. I mean, who knows, right? So these are our estimates. We would have to take everything out to bid and go through the bidding process. These are the estimates that we currently have. So this is what we are thinking. If we had to do the sprinkler suppression system, that alone might trigger the 30%.
Correct, but on that slide, you did show a number of, I think it was 12 million maybe?
Right.
And then there was 10 million for
Wastewater treatment.
wastewater treatment.
And you have
Community
to get 30.
Forum a couple of weeks ago, I think Access Road was 11 million or 10 million or,
Yes.
or thereabouts. Tonight, there was no dollar amount attributed to system upgrades.
Right, because again, we're talking all of the systems, electrical, plumbing. I mean, you're talking millions.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think what, and I'm probably a little bit out of line here, but I don't think anybody on the Amesbury City Council or within the community believes that a new school isn't required. I think the question is, where are we going to find the money? And
I understand.
when we find the money, what's it going to do to the Amesbury school system within our community and other municipal services?
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Additional questions, comments? Councilor Stagliani.
Thank you. Promise these are only the last couple. Thank you for your indulgence here. So we have a vote in January. Assuming it passes, there's a high likelihood that we and other communities may need to do some kind of Prop 2.5 override of some sort. You have mentioned at the last community forum that you're here for us, you're going to help us. I guess the question is, financially, how will you be helping us relative to that election, for that ballot question, if we have to put up an override ballot question, not in January, but at a future date? How will that play out?
Again, we're part of the community, where we will help and talk to our community members, we'll talk to our alumni, and make sure that they understand how important it is to Amesbury to do the override.
I appreciate
If that's
that,
what's needed.
but we're talking about money, the cost of running an election.
But you know I'm not in charge of the money. You know I'm not in charge of the money.
Well, to that end, for the January election, are you not reimbursing for certain costs like ballots and polling
Yes,
stations?
we are responsible for the election.
Okay, to some number, which begs the question, in some communities, not ours, because we're fortunate to have only one polling location, but other communities like Haverhill and other communities have more than one polling location. Will you be, to get the widest participation of voters, will you be having the regular setup that a community usually has, or are we limiting it, or would you be limiting what people are having? You've already mentioned that this is a state-mandated formula, state-mandated ballot question, state-mandated hours for the actual vote. So is the state mandating that if a community like Haverhill has, I don't know, 20 polling stations, they can only have 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever the number
No,
is?
we're working with our city clerks on that.
Seems, as a data guy, money number guy, it just seems nebulous to me. But I appreciate that. I appreciate all of the comments. I will note that we have 2 representatives to the district.
Yes.
That are appointed by our school committee.
Yes.
Okay. Can our school committee, because I don't think we as a council have any say here, although I do know that other select boards are trying to coordinate certain activities here. Can a school committee instruct its school committee representatives on the district to vote a certain way on this December 13th?
I don't think you can instruct anyone to vote a certain way about anything. You can obviously give them your opinion, but I don't think you can instruct them to vote a certain way.
Okay.
That would be very undemocratic.
Well, that's how it works at the UN and ambassadors and stuff like that, but I get it. Okay. Well, as I said, at the top of my questions, I'm in support of schools and support of education, but we have to balance it against the ability to pay. I am not sure that we have the ability to pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Additional comments, questions? Anybody? See none?
Do you have any?
I actually do have a couple of my own, just to follow up on Counselor Stanganelli's last point. I know we've had some turnover on the Whittier board for representatives from Amesbury recently. Can you just remind us who are Amesbury's two?
So you had Greg Noyce, who's on the Amesbury School Committee. He withdrew. So you have Sandy Coppinger as one school committee rep, and then you have Patty Lowell as the other school committee rep.
Thank you. Just looking at, as I went through, I was making notes, but I think you've addressed some of the questions that I had. Any other questions or comments from Council? Councilor Lynn.
Thanks. I'm just curious, before you came here tonight, if by chance you happen to watch the budget hearing we had the last time you were here in May.
If I had a chance to watch it?
Did you happen to just watch that before coming here tonight?
No.
Okay, that was a different conversation than the one we're having tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't really leave a great impression upon the council of Whittier Tech and Whittier Tech's intention towards the city of Amesbury and the Amesbury School District and the impact that Whittier Tech has on the Amesbury School District. So I appreciate that you have decided to change your tune a little bit, but the reality remains that we are living in a world of limited resources, and Amesbury has a long history of suffering in resources at the expense of Whittier Tech. So I want to see Whittier Tech improve their facilities. I completely understand and see the need for it. We went through this here in Amesbury a couple of years ago with the Amesbury Elementary School. The presentation that you have given us tonight is one we recently saw for one of our own schools and one we will see again for one of our own schools, which is the Cashman School, probably very soon. So the pictures of the worst facilities, the cracked ceilings and the collapsing, boiler and all of that, we have that here and we see it all the time. So, we understand how important that is and how important it is to address that sooner than later. But there is a far reach from addressing that problem and coming out with a $444 million proposal where you're getting 37% reimbursement from the MSBA. And then you're leaving $270 million to the community. Now, the whole project is 381 gross square feet, right? Mm-hmm. Vocational, technical, and educational maxes out at 122,000 and 50,000 square feet respectively. So there's 200,000 square feet of school that's not directly related to the actual education piece. It's other support matters. Mm-hmm. That, the explanation of the need for that kind of size for 1,200 students, it's just not there. And that's the apples to apples comparison that I think Councilor Stanganelli alluded to with the Metro project that would be worthwhile doing as an exercise. Now, I think this project is going to fail at the polls. And I don't want to see that happen. I want to see Whittier Tech move forward and advance a project. But what you have presented is a scope and scale that is too large for all of the communities in the district to bear. and you're going to fall on your own sword is what's going to happen. And I don't want to see that happen, but I do think that that is where you are headed. School projects do fail all the time. It happens all the time with the MSBA, and it happens all the time where you have to then go back or get back in line at the back of the line to try and redo it, and you buy yourself time. And it's because often you dream too big and you fly too close to the sun. And this project is a very big dream. So, you haven't submitted your schematic design yet. You haven't decided to go to the vote. And you have these other issues that you really should be considering if you actually want to build a thing. You have bubbling under the surface an admissions problem that every single technical vocational school in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has and needs to reconcile. That is only going to become a bigger and more obvious problem over time. That needs to be solved. And Amesbury especially is affected by this admissions problem, and it's part of the bad taste in the mouth. So the sooner that gets addressed, the better for the Whittier School District, without a doubt. You have expansive programming, really expansive programming for a vocational technical school, and I know that's something that you're really proud of, but if you actually want to build a new school, you should probably be considering scoping that programming and your capacity to provide those offerings in an effort to build a school, because you can't have both. We can't afford it, districts can't afford to lose that, and it's too big of a dream, is really what it comes down to. And some of those offerings inside of your program, they are direct to college programming. They are not workforce programming. So the representation that everything that Whittier Tech is doing is a trades program, it's not true. And your graduation and college acceptance rates, they show that. So you have no ability to maneuver around that reality. You've got to decide if you're a college prep school or if you're a voc school. And your mandate is to be a voc tech school. And focus on those offerings inside of your programming. The final problem here is the public relations issue. It is the community outreach issue. Coming to us today and telling us that you came to this room in 2016 to ask for a stabilization fund is not the same as coming every single quarter from 2016 to today to have this conversation. And that's what you really needed to do in every single community to make sure every single community was actually prepared with levy capacity to underwrite something like this. When you come in at the very end and say, we're going to send you a bill, and you get this kind of explosive blowback where I think your vote is not going to pass just based on the presentation you've given tonight. You've given very high-level numbers, and you've already also started talking to us about your alternatives plan, because you think that's a reality too.
I need to make sure that Whittier Tech is open for the children.
Absolutely.
So that is, if the vote fails, I need to move forward with the code upgrade as soon as possible.
There is a space between the code upgrade that you're representing and the $444 million project. And you have not yet submitted to schematic design, and you have not yet set forth to the vote. So you do have the opportunity to find the space between those two things and actually build a school. And that's what I encourage you to do.
So schematic design Schematic design has been submitted to MSBA. That's what they're voting on December 13th.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions or comments from council? Seeing none? Okay. Ms. Lynch, thank you for the presentation. We appreciate your attendance tonight.
We want, and if you can't find anything that you're looking for, then please feel free to reach out to me, and I will provide that information to you. And the next slide. Thank you. So again, our anticipated district-wide vote is January 23rd from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., and we will know for sure about that after our school committee meeting on Wednesday.
All right. I want to now open it up to the counselors to ask questions. Councilor Khan.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. And as you know, I've been on budget and finance for 6 years, and I know that's one of the things is that we talked about is we knew this was coming, but we never really had a clear idea on the process. So one of the slides I found interesting, I think if we could go to maybe slide 2 or 3, where we have the existing conditions report, I think in 2014. And as someone who's sitting here, and a lot of us have seen projects like this come, large-scale capital projects, and one of the things that I think resonates probably the most clearly here is just that communication, letting the public know, knowing that different designs were considered. It's just been really hard. Even when I did look on the website, you know, I know as with the MSBA grant process too, there's always a committee that's formed, and I did look at other regional tech schools, and everyone has a different agreement, so I know ours is a little unique in the way we structure capital costs for projects like this. But serving on the MMA with some other communities, I've been able to look at, for example, Franklin and what they did with the tri-county VOTEC. And I know it's not always apples to apples comparison, but there have been large-scale capital improvements for new buildings. I mean, that's just is what we're seeing that happen across the Commonwealth. So my question more is around that process and that kind of transparency. And that is one aspect, because if you look at these schools, there tends to be a similar, I would say a similar service. The square footages are around the same. The student enrollment are around the same, which is one of the things I started looking in spreadsheets. But the costs are really different here. And that's one of the things that I'm really trying to understand is the scale of it. And in fact, the latest one that I saw that was recently approved through a community vote, similar to what's being asked here, was in 2023, this year, Franklin and the other communities. But when I went back to see, there was communication from the last 4 years on this. And I think that's one of the things you're seeing here is we're very grateful for this opportunity, and thank you for bringing everyone here and having, you know, I know you're going around and doing this, but sometimes as someone who's been sitting here for 6 years on budget and finance and having Whittier Tech before us for the school budget approval, it is to me, a little surprising how a lot of this seems to be coming very quickly before us, and especially in terms of the number. So that's more just a reaction in terms of just what I think the community and what the council is kind of seeing here. So my question will go that 2014 existing conditions report was something I really couldn't find. So how was that delivered? Because I believe that was on the timeline there, 2014, the facility feasibility study.
Right.
So is that a delivered, I don't know, 200-page document, or what's that?
It's on our website, I believe, because I've had people look through it. So let me get that back to you.
Yeah, that would be great. But more like what you see is executive summary. So I did see on the website existing conditions. So I've been really prowling through the website. So I saw the existing conditions study or report, but those are 1 or 2 pages.
Right.
So that's my first question, is maybe having a lot of these documents that were done at that time as part of the communication when we were approving budgets or talking about like the future next step. So that's one thing I would say is really important. The second one is the timeline here, 2016 and onward. You know, this did not all happen overnight. So I appreciate and understand that there's been a lot of trying to keep up and with the projects that are in place or the improvements. But this has been over time, I think, what we call deferred maintenance or however. So how would you answer that? Like in terms of knowing the age, whatever the feasibility study was showing, what was the plan before we came to this stage in updating, not having sprinkler system, suppression system? That's a huge issue. So what was the original plan before it came down to, listen, this is what we need to do?
Right. So in 2014, it was the former superintendent that did that facility study. In 2016, we went to each of our communities and asked for a stabilization account, talking about the fact that we knew our building was starting to have some significant issues. And when you get behind the walls and you do systems, it's not an easy fix. You know, and I think some of the pictures that Bob showed are things that we could probably easily fix. But when you're doing heat and you're doing plumbing, that becomes a much bigger, when you're getting behind the walls, it becomes a much bigger project. That's sort of what started. So the 2014 was really so that we could put in that statement of interest, because we knew the burden was on our community. We needed to follow this process. We needed to ask MSBA. Imagine if I came here and told you today that we haven't talked to MSBA, we're just moving forward with a code up compliance upgrade. You'd say, well, what? You haven't done your due diligence, right? So that was part of what we were doing through MSBA, and so here we are.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the reason maybe it was not talked about or a study done on that was because of the MSBA process?
Right. We were using that facility study to start writing a statement of interest. That was one of the main reasons why we did that facility study.
Okay, I will pause there for now, see if my colleagues have any other questions. Councilor Z?
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Just a couple questions. The first one is, can you talk about, or maybe this is for the OPM, since you mentioned they may be here, what do you think the range of cost reduction could be? You know, I mean, you've been at this now for a few years. Are we talking about, 1 to 2%? Are we talking about 10%? Is it, is it a general scope? What do you think that could be? And then similarly, the grants you mentioned, do you have an idea of what is out there that's potentially, besides MSBA?
So I'll have OPM answer the first question, and I'll answer the second one. You want to answer the first one, David?
Hi, David Saman, left there, OPM. Just as background, about $9.8 million has already been value engineered out of this project. And as Maureen indicated, we're always going to be looking for cost savings and cost-saving opportunities. We have carried escalation and contingencies, not to say they're all going to be used. So if the market levels off or drops or is lower than what we anticipated, that would be savings.
So that was actually my second question. Do you know what percentage you're carrying for contingency and escalations?
I want to say for the next 2 to 3 years, I believe we're carrying 6%.
How about the grant superintendent? Do you have a sense for, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what's the scope here? Are we talking about, at 440, a few $1 million is great, don't get me wrong, but it's obviously not material in the broader number, and that's what I'm trying to get at is there something material out there that we haven't heard about yet because you're not sure you can get it or if it's achievable?
We recently received more money from MSBA, $28 million. It was not a significant difference with the taxpayer. I think it was $20 a year, which is significant. I shouldn't say it's not significant, but it really didn't change. But I am committed, my team's committed, that we will do everything that we possibly can to try to bring down the cost of this project. We're lucky that we have kids that can help, like do dugouts, for instance, on the fields. Like we can do some of that work. I'm not sure it's going to materially bring down the cost, but we will do everything that we possibly can to try to minimize the hurt for our district, for sure.
Okay. So 2 other questions. One is, the agreement certainly has come up quite a bit, and maybe this is for the school committee members or for yourself. I mean, what is the feeling on amending that agreement or making adjustments to it to perhaps adjust how the capital formulation is made, perhaps based on something like a trailing average of actual students as opposed to just this number of kids in your district? Has that been broached at all as part of this conversation?
I don't get the sense that there are some, it would have to be open, everyone would have to approve.
Sure.
Opening up the regional agreement, and I don't get the sense that everyone would be on board with that.
Okay.
So can I just add to that, Councillor, in how do you mind just I could add to it? So the agreements have been modified in other communities, but it's again to the communities to vote. So similar process as this.
Sure. Okay, last question is just trying to wrap, and maybe back to the OPM, just trying to wrap my head around the cost per square foot. I mean, that's sort of a generic way to think about projects against other projects. I mean, it's coming in around $11.50 per square foot. Do you, to the councilor's question earlier, can you compare that to any recent VOC projects? Is that in band, and is that the trend that we've been, what was that number, a few years ago? What is it, those sorts of,
David has done some research for that, so
Thank you.
So first I'd say it's somewhat of a slippery slope to compare one project to another project, because especially VOTEC schools, they're not all the same. There can also be a lot of different dynamics from one site to another site. But I did do an analysis and taking out all of the differentiators, abatement, demo, site work challenges, and just looking at the core building. And as an example, looking at the core direct trade costs, building costs only, so just the building, the box. And these are numbers I received from the MSBA's website. Northeast Metro Tech was about $135.5 million in rounding. Whittier Tech is $182 million in rounding, and Tri-County is $134.4 million. Then you look at, we applied an escalation to Northeast Metro Tech to bring it, because that was a few years back. The square footage of each project varies, but when you do a cost per square foot, Northeast Metro Tech was $449 a square foot, Whittier Tech $478, and Tri-County $477. So we are within $1 for Tri-County on just the building only. But I also want to make note that Northeast Metro Tech, I believe, has 19 programs. 16, excuse me. And our program is 24. So 2 different levels of programming.
Okay, thank you. I yield for now. Thank you.
Other counselors?
Can we get that information too?
Yes. All the questions that are being asked, can we? Yes. Counselors? Counselor Preston?
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, let me just say, I really appreciate you being here, and I really value vocational schools. My only nephew just graduated from a vocational school. But having said that, our residents feel really bullied to pay a disproportionate amount for this school, right? And so other than the acts of 1967, because I'm 54 years old, I wasn't alive in 1967. So other than those acts, how would you convince the residents of Newburyport that we should be paying disproportionately more for this school when we send proportionally almost the least amount of students?
Well, I guess I wouldn't use the word disproportional, right?
I would.
Okay. We're providing a workforce for this region. That you can send us, there's not a portion of students that have to go to Whittier Tech. You can send as many students as, I would encourage more students applying to Whittier Tech, because that's really where it's at, is really making sure more students are applying to Whittier Tech and enrolling at Whittier Tech. I would also say that right now, we have, I think, 12 adult students that are at Whittier Tech. One of them happens to be my mom's really good friend, and it's changed his life. He's an adult student and decided to come to Whittier Tech for the electrical program, and things have really turned around for him. So it's not just the day students, it's also the night programs that we're offering, the CTI programs that we're offering, and that workforce that is making Newburyport as great as it is.
So that dovetails well into another question I have. So you mentioned a couple of times the evening programs, and it sounds like there's a great deal of people participating in these evening programs. How does that, so just the revenue from the evening programs, but I think even more so the wear and tear. So obviously if these people are in the school at night, they are also pulling on the same services and creating the same wear and tear for the schools. How does that fit into the future costs for the program?
So it's funny that you say that, because one of the things I'm concerned about is if we're continuing to stay on this road and the vote fails, what we would do with our evening programs, because we would have to save that for our day students until we get certain things taken care of. So, we've looked at it as an opportunity to provide a workforce for our region. The commitment is there for this building. It's been 50 years. We have worked diligently on making sure that it has lasted 50 years. We have done most of our own renovations. I don't think we've ever come to the board here and asked for funding for a renovation project. We've been able to get, again, capital skills grants and do that kind of work on our own, but this is kind of where we're at.
That actually dovetails into my next question. So you say you've never come to us for any of these renovations. That is a great concern to me. I am amazed that the building has fallen into such terrible disrepair. I mean, we saw picture after picture. How has that been allowed to happen? Because to me, that's mismanagement, like gross mismanagement. And why should we trust you to manage a new building, should we have a new building?
So I think the word might be, because we haven't come to you for the money, it doesn't mean that we haven't done the work. You know, we put in a roof several years ago. We have updated our wastewater treatment plant a few years ago. We have done renovations in machine technology, health assisting, and HVAC recently using capital skills grants, because that's what we're trying to eliminate as much need from our community, so that we've been doing a lot of this on our own, seeking out grants.
But if you've been doing that, how does it look that bad?
Well, I think actually if you walk through the building, you'd probably say it looks pretty good. We're obviously showing you pictures of things that are a real concern to us. Bob and his team do an amazing job of upkeeping that building. It's 50 years old. The systems are failing. That's where we're at.
So why didn't you come to us, and all the member communities, to fix these programs and projects along the way?
Because it's much bigger than, that's why we went through MSBA. It's a bigger project. We're talking systems. We can't just do one. It would trigger all these other things. We have to go through MSBA first. I mean, that would be the only right thing to do.
I would argue the right thing to do would have been to fix it earlier, but I will yield.
Other questions? Councilor Donahue.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. So first, just thank you for the presentation. You know, I want to share a little bit about my connection with Whittier and some of the differences that I've seen over the years. I'm one of 8 children, and 4 of my 7 siblings actually attended Whittier at 2 different times in its history. My 2 oldest siblings attended Whittier in the 80s and 90s, and that was at a time when it was really almost like an alternative for anyone that didn't fit the mold for regular public schools, and it was really a last stop for a lot of students. And it turned their lives around. It gave them trades, it gave them skills, it gave us a workforce, like you say. But over the years, the process changed, and I'm not sure when or exactly, you know, what was the genesis of it was. But by the time my younger siblings both went, which was about 15 years later, the process had changed, and you had to, I mean, it was not unlike applying for college, and getting in was a big deal. And, you know, one of my siblings got in, the other had to reapply and get his grades up and to get in. So, and that being said, you know, we now have really just a few dozen or so Newburyport students. Can you speak to how that process has changed and how the enrollment has just, you know, become something that it truly is hard to digest, $30 million in tax burden to our taxpayers, you know, without really having more than just to say that, you know, it's contributing to the grander scheme of a workforce, which I certainly appreciate, but would be remiss to not sort of ask what's been the genesis of that change, and has that affected enrollment and different communities' abilities to have more students interested and engaged and enrolled?
So that's a loaded question. So there's the admissions piece. You know, I think, you know, I've been at Whittier since 2006. People back there helping me. Since 2006, we had an admissions policy at that time. Over the years, you know, till now, I would tell you admissions is really based mostly on students that on the interview. So students that truly want to come to Whittier Tech. and the recommendation from the middle school. And those are the students that generally, discipline is not really a factor unless it's a 37 age and a half, which is a major discipline violation. Attendance does play a role, and grades do play a role, but not nearly the way it was in 2006.
Understood. Okay.
I would say that vocational education has become very attractive to kids. College is really starting to get out of reach for many of our students. At $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year now. This provides kids a really great opportunity to go out right into the workforce. I heard a story of a 20-foot police officer whose son came to Whittier. He's working for National Grid and he's making $150,000 a year and he's 24 years old. Those are our success stories. So those are some of the things that I think we're doing really well. Our students have the same bar for MCAS exam, so our students have to pass at the same level, but our students are doing it in half the time, right? Because they're in the trade the other half of their day or their week. So, and since I've been there since 16 years, it is not me. I have wonderful teachers around that are doing great work, that are making sure that students are getting a high school diploma. So since 2006, every student has received a high school diploma.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions? Because I want to get one in myself. All right, I have one. I was looking at your numbers for what happens if the vote does fail, and you gave us the numbers for the wastewater treatment, sprinkler suppression system, and the access road, with those estimated values well into the $35 million range. Where do those numbers show? Where did those numbers show up in your formulas?
David, you want to take that one?
Sure.
And I asked because I did look through your preferred schematic report just to get estimates, and it seemed like the numbers in there were much different than what you're showing here.
So the values for the sprinkler upgrade, the wastewater treatment plant, and the secondary access road, they are part of the schematic design estimate.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those costs can be culled out from the estimate fairly quickly. Some costs, they're just buried within the overall construction value.
So I did look, and there were certain pages that actually came out, and it comes out as, the sprinkler system is its own section, and it says it's going to be $5.5 million.
Correct,
So,
but if that was a standalone project, it would not be $5 million.
it's listed under A1. That's why I asked the question. So just like a little more clarity on where those three numbers came from, because it doesn't seem like it matches up.
So those three numbers are if it was a standalone project. So if the project failed and you had to do a sprinkler upgrade, the cost that you may be referring to is just a direct cost within the estimate. It doesn't have any contingencies, it doesn't have any soft costs, it doesn't have any management costs. It's missing a lot of information to make it a whole, complete project.
It would double. So that's what you're saying?
I mean, it includes contingencies, and if the contingencies aren't utilized, then they're not going to be utilized. There would be a lower cost.
Further questions? Councilor Preston?
I have a similar question along with the access road, so the $11.4 million access road. In previous presentations, I've been led to believe that that was a requirement. Now it appears it's maybe on the bubble, maybe not a requirement. A, is it a requirement? Is it not a requirement? And B, is it in the $445 million estimate, or is it not?
No, it is.
It is. So we've saved $11.4 million already because it does not need to be done, despite being told it did need to be done.
It is a request that came from the first responders when we coordinated the design of the project in the city of Haven.
Are there other $11-ish million things that are requests not required?
No.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councilor Cameron?
So, yeah, I think you get the sense, for us in Newburyport, I think, anything in addition you want to tell us about the condition of the school or about the value to the students and to the community, I don't think you need to do. I mean, you need a new school. I get that. There's certainly a need, and there's probably a number of students and former students in this room right now. So I get all that, but the bottom line, it's a very expensive school, and we're used to school projects, but they're at a very different scale. We've only done one completely new school in the last 10 or so years. And our percentage, based on that original formulation from 1967 for capital projects, we are paying, proportional to the students, and I get the value. Maybe we can crank the numbers per capita, maybe that would end up the same thing. But, essentially, it's a big nut for us. If this does get approved, either we pass a debt exclusion or we're going to have to cut a couple of $1 million annually out of our operating budget. So it's a big deal. If it does go to a vote, I'm not sure how I personally would vote on it, and we'll cross that bridge when it comes to. But I'm asking about, an apples-to-apples comparison. There's not a lot of, and to my understanding, not a lot of new vocational schools, but Northeast Metro Regional Vocational School was approved for one a couple of years ago. Similar student enrollment. I have no idea if it was really big, really small, how many different programs they have. I believe their total project budget was around $317 million. Is that project in any way comparable to what you're talking about? And if not, do you know why? And is there a way for us to find more information about that?
So, as I said, I think it's a slippery slope when we start to compare one project to another. As I was corrected, Northeast Metro Tech has 16 programs, and Whittier Tech has 24.
Yeah.
I am not familiar with the site work costs for Northeast Metro Tech, and site work costs can be a major driver.
Yeah. Okay. Something we can look at. Thank you.
Last question, I'm going to let public comment happen.
So my last question is just in reviewing some of your images of the school, there's significant athletic facilities, for example. And so the last question I have is just to what degree has phasing been considered? Could things like that be left for 5 years, let's say, or some way to take the timeline and numerically make it. And I'm only pointing to the athletic fields just because they're so obvious on the picture, but I'm sure there are other things that could be logical for phasing. As opposed to biting off the whole 440 at one time. Understanding, again, just understanding that one thing you're probably telling me as well, you'll have more mobilization cost. I get that, but sometimes that's the cost, that's required in order to phase a project. So how does that look?
Well, I can just say that the fields that are being implemented as part of this project is basically the replacement of the fields where the new building will be constructed. So could they be deferred for many, many years? Yes. And you're right, there would be another mobilization to do that in the future. But during that time period, you won't have sports.
And I think it's important to note that we did a new turf field a few years ago, but maybe 5 right before COVID, and we won't be touching that. The new building would go behind that, so I think that's important. And what we're looking at for the new field would not be turf; it would be grass. And again, things that we can do are doing dugouts with our kids, that kind of work. So you have my word that we're going to do everything we possibly can to bring down the cost to our community. We're also hopeful that the municipal bond rates will go down, and that will be a huge cost saving if we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. With that being said, I do want to open up to public comments. Now, this is not going to be like the other municipal meetings where it's back and forth. This is purely just public comment like we normally do in city council chambers. And depending on how many folks get up, I'd like for folks to keep it to maybe a minute, minute and a half, if possible, because we do have our city council meeting coming up next. So,
just to know, we have open it so it can end when it's going to end. I'm going to switch hard, so carry on.
Thank you. So, anyone for public comment? So, I see one in the back.
There's a sign-up sheet, I think.
Yeah, good evening. Owen Smith. I live on 175 Story Avenue. And I just want to make a comment about project controls. As many of you who may know me, a big interest of mine is public works projects and how they're done. And I look at this and I see an OPM who obviously has an interest in getting this project done, for good or for bad. And also the incentive you have of having a higher cost associated with that, because we have the OPM with the project management company and a general contractor working. And I just find it kind of odd that we have a general contractor retained on a project that is still in the planning phase as far as I can tell. What internal controls do we have at Whittier to ensure that costs are not being escalated because there's things they want and they may not turn over every stone to find every savings possible. And the example I would cite would be with the renovation option. I see an absolute statement that there's no MSBA matches for renovation. Well,